Good afternoon and welcome to Pray Tell Live. My name is Rita Ferrone and I'm here with three wonderful pastoral people, musicians, pastors, and good friends. And I will ask them now to introduce themselves to you. We're here at the NPM National Convention in Washington, D.C., and our topic for this roundtable discussion is congregational song. We've got the music. Tony, would you start us off?
Absolutely. My name is Tony Alonso. I am a Cuban-American liturgical composer, music minister, and currently living in Atlanta, studying for my PhD at Emory University in liturgical studies.
I'm Rob Glover. Originally I hail from the state of South Dakota, but for the last 32 years I've been working as a music minister in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and a suburb thereof, Church of St. Therese in Deep Haven. Church musician all of my adult life.
And Rob, you and I know each other from the choir director's school.
Yeah, we worked together.
You've done some work with NPM before.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
I enjoy working with the conductors.
I'm Paul Turner. I'm a priest of the Diocese of Kansas City, St. Joseph. Have been a priest 34 years and pastor for most of that time. I'm currently serving as pastor of St. Anthony's Church, which has a bilingual ministry. It reaches out to the old historic Italian families that have settled that area, as well as the new immigration of Mexican Americans who have come in. So we do some masses in English, some in Spanish. We have people from many different parts of the world settling into our area. It's not quite a little Brooklyn, but it's you get the idea. I've been a church musician for a long time and still try to keep it up. I've certainly kept up my interest in music over the years.
Great. Mike McMahon, who's the outgoing president of NPM, has been known to say that the liturgical musician's greatest instrument is the singing congregation. And I always found this to be an invigorating idea. But I realized that in American culture today, we are awash in recorded music. And that for many people, being a singing congregation is something they feel marginally attracted to, or maybe that they can't really sing, but I think it's a bigger cultural thing than just some individuals who don't feel secure in using their voices. I mean, we don't sing the national anthem at ball games anymore. You get soloists to sing it. Even in restaurants, we have Happy Birthday sung by the waiters, for God's sake, instead of by the people who are at the table. So what we're doing when we get together with people in church and we say everybody's going to sing is really becoming something that's countercultural in certain ways. So here's the question I have for you. What is it that the church, that we are cherishing when we cherish congregational song explicitly? What is it that we're cherishing in that phenomenon?
Of course, we talked a little bit about how this is a very culturally conditioned question, right? For some people in some cultures where music hasn't been quite as commodified as it is in North American culture, the idea of not singing is a foreign concept. Yet, I'm struck by how many stories. Rob shared a story before we were on the air about someone he knew who was told at a young age that they could not sing. And I think John Bell, who's a liturgical composer from Iona, Scotland, likes to say that, and I think it's an unscientific fact personally, but he says 1 in 4 people has been told at a formative period in their life that they cannot sing. And when that happens, especially at a formative period in your life, it stays with you. I remember being told I can't dance when I was in 6th grade, and I rarely would feel comfortable dancing in public. So we're up against this kind of commodification of music, giving it over to the experts, and then experts who are sadly, rather than cultivating the song of an untrained group of people, often robbing people of that. And one phrase that kind of sticks with me is a phrase that Gabe Huck used, that we're surrounded by music but robbed of song. And that really kind of touches how I think of it.
Thinking back to our childhoods, and I think of the education system that all of us have been a part of, and the children and the adults that are in our congregations now. What how was singing part of their school day experience? In so many schools these days, it's not even a part of it. And even the specialized choirs, you in middle school often you're choosing, you're going to be in this choir or are you going to just do music appreciation. And the joy of singing as children is waning. But I think there's hope, especially in early childhood education. Music is always a part of that. And I think the sooner children have that joy and that experience of singing, the more they'll come back to it.
I agree with these comments, especially yours, Tony, about the cultural differences. In my parish, there's better congregational singing at the 2 Spanish language masses than at the 2 English masses. But even so, it's not perfect. There are lots of people who don't join in the singing or don't do it with the right energy. A lot of it depends on the musical leadership and how inviting it is. But if the leaders are committed to congregational song, then I think it can happen. But you asked, why is this important to us? I think to sing is to commit. To sing is a stronger commitment than just to say something. You're willing to put yourself at risk. You're willing to try to overcome these feelings that someone has told me I can't sing, I can't do this, and you're willing to say, no, maybe that's how you feel, but this is how I feel, and I feel so important about this that I have to sing. That's why we have a national anthem, because it calls people into song to make a commitment to their country. So I think there's a lot of goodness of keeping song part of what we do. And then one of the insights of Sacrosanctum Concilium is the link between the music and the text, and how of all the different treasures that the church has, the musical treasury has a place above the others, because it is how we adorn the words of the Mass, how we adorn our prayer. So especially when we're singing parts of the Mass, we're adorning the words with song, and that makes it more beautiful and more prayerful, and it makes the music constitutive to how we pray.
I was impressed recently. We had a piece on the blog about a scientific study that was done of a choir in Sweden where they measured their heart rate, and when they sang together, their hearts started beating as one. And that there are these physiological things about singing together that do something to us physically. I'm aware also of studies of Alzheimer's patients and people with dementia that you're singing with a different part of your brain, or stroke victims too. And that some of the things that you do when you sing remain with you even when other faculties of the mind are no longer there. So I wondered if anyone wanted to comment on just congregational song as a way of embodied or incarnational faith.
I think it's so much singing in the liturgy is so much a part of being able to express one's faith. And Catholics have a tradition of not openly expressing their faith and as in outward signs. And obviously singing is definitely an outward sign. It's, as you said, a real commitment. And to sing your faith is what I'm always asking people and inviting people to do. And at different moments in people's lives, some people will not be able to sing, for who knows what the reason is in their life. It could be a tragedy that's just happened to them, but they came to church for a moment of quiet and help. But other moments there will be. I really believe that people will sing when they have something in their life to sing about.
We see it occasionally at funerals, for example, where there's something about the musical leadership and the occasion that people feel the need to join their voices together in song. The music is going to accomplish something for that group that they need. That's a group that's gathering just for a particular occasion. They aren't there each week, and they've come with a common purpose. They need some common way of sharing the purpose for which they've come. So sometimes the song really works, sometimes it doesn't, and there are various reasons for that, but the music can accomplish for people the grief, the hope that drew them together at this day.
Your question about the embodied nature of music making, and especially that insight about Alzheimer's patients who, when they've forgotten everything else, somehow still remember that hymn from their childhood. It's powerful, but to me it's also deeply intimidating, and it causes a lot of deep reflection on my part as I'm composing and choosing music that's going to be put on the words that are going to be put on the lips of my assemblies. Because you're thinking, these kind of questions you're asking, they cut so deeply beyond, debates about whether we should be using a guitar or an organ or chant or this, to deep questions about what kind of words and melodies we're placing in people's hearts for a lifetime. And so this question you're raising, I think, is so critical for music ministers to kind of take a wider view of how they discern the music that their communities are going to sing.
The history of movements in human societies, every movement has a song, and when you said that people have something to sing about, that's when they're going to sing. And the question does come to mind of, do we feel that sense of having something to sing about? That Christianity, is a long time since Christianity was a movement, and yet we may be headed toward it being a movement again, in the sense that it's no longer perhaps as culturally central and would be awakening a kind of passion that maybe is a little deeper for people. I don't know, but one of the things that occurs to me with song too is that we own the means of production. If you don't have your piano with you, you can still sing. You don't have your guitar, no matter what, and I remember being in the hospital bed after a big surgery, and I just started to sing to myself, and I enjoyed the song so much that I spilled a glass of water all over myself. But the fact was that the music was in me. It didn't have to be piped in. It didn't have to have somebody else to do it. And what we do with our congregations, as you were saying, Tony, we're kind of equipping them with these things that are now going to be written on their hard drive, part of their brain for life. And what do we do with that? So I guess that brings us to the next question, which is, well, how do we make it happen? What are some strategies that you've used or that you're keen on for helping to build a singing congregation, communal singing?
Well, I think first, don't give up. Get in there and try. I think too often people give it a try for a week or two at a mass or at a daily mass, and they think, oh, it isn't going anywhere, and maybe they abandon hope. But I think most people will be gratified immediately by the reaction of song. So the first thing is try it. And then I think a lot depends on the musical leadership, how it is that the congregation is invited to sing. Many times the leadership falls into the same celebrity culture that has separated people from song, from live singing. So you'll see a bank of microphones, a spotlight, any number of things, a person standing up in the front to sort of draw attention to themselves, and musically and visually and orally, it looks like someone has come to sing for me. So I think there are things we need to be attentive to within the churches. How we present ourselves, how the musical leadership invites the people to realize they're, in a sense, in front of the microphone. They are the ones whose song this is.
I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. For me as a composer, one of the challenges has been to look at forms of singing. I feel like a lot of post-conciliar music has been dominated by refrain verse music, where the cantor has a long, perhaps 16-measure refrain, and then the assembly has a brief response. And that communicates something about how integral or not an assembly's voice is. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done with kind of the back and forth of ritual music, call and response forms from other cultures, repetitive forms that just almost demand participation. You know, it's hard to imagine, for instance, certain songs from Africa being just sung by a soloist in the front of the church without participation. They just call it forth. So how do we continue to nurture that in our own cultural idioms in the U.S. and beyond is something that I've been really reflecting on.
Tony, can you just enumerate some of those other forms for those of us who are not as conversant with these different categories?
Sure. So, for example, seasonally, I've been looking at, gathering litanies that are really a kind of a constant back and forth with the assembly. So, in other words, saying, without you, this song cannot happen. Cantor sings a line, assembly has response. The cantor cannot possibly overtake the song because they can't do both at once. And I think that says something. It'd be akin to the presider saying, the Lord be with you and with your spirit. It's not how it works. It establishes this back and forth. So I think there's a lot of challenge there for those of us composing.
Yeah, there's, of course, a lot of history in our Roman Rite with that dialogical responses that calls for the response from the people. And if you sing a phrase and the people know what the words are going to be back, they'll sing it back. If it's on one tone, they'll sing it back to you. And one thing that I like to do when it comes to Sunday morning or Saturday evening, whenever we gather for worship with the folks, is to get any things that get in the way. I don't use the organ. I don't use the piano. I don't use a guitar. I don't use an instrument other than my human voice. And I try to step away from the microphone. And if I'm going to teach a response, I sing it, and then I wait for them to sing it back to me. It's always so much easier with the children because they are less inhibited. I get to work with children every week for our liturgy, morning prayer, or a mass, and it's always much easier then. But still, getting away from the things that get in the way of the people singing is so important. The call and response things. One of the thing, Brother Howard Hughes is the person we're honoring this week, and one of his call and response that he probably wrote 35 years ago is Hallelujah, Hallelujah. And you don't get a response unless, for a cantor to sing Hallelujah, Hallelujah, and that's the first thing I teach my cantors is that this is not your time to be sung. You call it out and you listen for the response. And I think that's such an important teaching tool for the leaders of music, so that they open their ears and listen and close their mouth so that they hear the sound of the assembly.
You mentioned a cappella singing, and that's something else I've discovered. I respect and totally value the work of instrumentalists who come to our church on the weekends, but when they're sick at the last minute or can't show up and we have to sing a cappella, that's when I learn how well the congregation can sing. And they do. They realize that they're the ones who have to create the song, and they rise to the occasion and do it. I really think we've got more potential in the assembly than we give them credit for. They have the ability. We just need to tap the ways to bring that out.
Yeah, I think John Bell has helped us discover that as well. The power that's in the human voice in the assembly, little by little.
Yeah, and I think of practical realities as well, like communion time. What does it communicate when the choir needs to receive communion and all the music stops? It says, you can't do this without us.
I hate that.
Right? And even the accompaniment, if all the accompaniment drops out. So I quickly learned I would step away and do a cappella singing while I received communion, the choir would. And what happened, it was a practical reality that needed to happen, but the singing swelled. Maybe not at first, and maybe sometimes you need to risk it failing a little bit. Right. Maybe you need to risk a few Sundays where people are like, what just happened here? But over the course of a lifetime, you're nurturing a singing congregation.
You really are. Yeah. So true.
Pace is something else we should probably mention. One thing that can kill congregational singing is a slow pace from the accompaniment. I don't think our church is unique with this problem, but we sure have a good reputation for fostering it. So I think One thing we could do is move the pace of those hymns forward, and a lot of times the song is so slow, no one wants to sing. Why? It doesn't feel inviting because the leadership has chosen the wrong style, the wrong feeling to get things launched.
Practically, that really drives me nuts, but a practical solution is lift high the cross. If you do that with 4 beats to the measure, the song is going to die before it gets through a refrain. But if you feel the heartbeat of the piece, and Paul Mons was the great teacher for me on this, where's the heartbeat, where's the ictus of this piece? Lift high the cross, it really has a movement to it rather than bum, 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 just drags it down.
I think we've got lots of we've got lots of potential for singing. The other thing that might help would be to create other opportunities when people can sing even outside the liturgy. So you might even think, when is this body of people gathered for something else? Are they here for a meeting, a parish meeting, a gathering for a dinner, or whatever? Maybe they won't have music in front of them, but they might have some refrains that they know very well, and they could sing that as a part of their prayer when they're all together. Then you've encouraged people to make music part of their lives. One of the things I've been mentioning this week, and I'm sure others have said it too, the church is one of the few places where you can go to experience live music every week. Now you can get it at a local bar sometimes. But where do you go to hear it or sing it live? Even at the ballpark, a lot of times the national anthem is being lip synced. So it's just a matter of people taking advantage of the opportunities for live music, and us realizing what a responsibility we have to offer and encourage the experience of live music with our people.
I'd like to put in a word for just what you were saying about singing in other venues and the place of hymnody in our ritual song. It's the Roman Rite lends itself to many different types of music, and sometimes having hymns isn't the easiest thing to integrate into the liturgical action. But as part of our Christian life, aren't there occasions when we want to sing hymns? A couple of summers I worked at Protestant churches, and the hymnal was something that you had every time you gathered. You'd open it up and sing, and those were well thumbed. Mary Louise Bringle just wrote something for the Christian Century about the hymnal, and we're switching off to things on screens, and of course I know a lot of participation aids that are made up for the event, and in a way may discourage us from using those things as much because we have to have ready-made equipment for it. But really good use of a hymnal, and a really good. Tell me what you think of that, though, because I realize this is something that not every liturgical musician values or it has a high place for.
I place a high value on that. I think it requires a degree of catechesis weaving in from the presider as well, and preaching and so forth. For instance, when I worked at a church in Chicago, we would reprint the refrain of, say, the Lenten seasonal communion song in the parish bulletin with a little table prayer that people could pray around the table. And the presider would weave that into the preaching, encouraging people as part of their Lenten discipline to do that, and even take them through the table prayer. So these simple ways of connecting it back home. I don't know how many people did it, but the people that did, for them it was an incredibly powerful way of connecting the daily table with the Eucharistic table.
There's more available now electronically, and so many people are carrying smartphones and pads that they can use for accessing things. I'm sure the availability of hymns and musical song on these devices is only going to increase. I don't know how I feel about people using them, but it's going to happen. We're probably going to see it within the next 5 to 10 years, where you could encourage people to sing along at church from their device instead of from a hymnal. It does have the advantage that it's with you all the time. Your hymnal, if you will, is with you all the time. And where 2 or 3 are gathered, you can sing. So I don't know, but the technology is allowing us the possibility of singing more complex things than what we can just keep in our heads.
One of the things in Mary Louise Bringle's article, though, was that, and I love this because it is the whole difference between live things and things that you direct people with your eye, you know, that you're going to put your eye where it belongs. She said, you can always thumb through the hymnal and look at other hymns in between. And that indirection, that sense that each person might be engaging in this in multiple ways, is sort of a wonderful thing that can be missed if we are too electronic. But do you want to add something, Rob?
Well, to me, I didn't grow up with hymnals, but I can't imagine working in a parish without a hymnal. It's a source to have and to go to on various occasions. But I never let it limit my ability to sing. But I just find it as an incredible resource to have, and that everybody reading from it and singing really helps unify the congregation too.
Well, we're coming to the end of our time. We've got some, I think, wonderful insights, and thank you all for them. Any last words? I know a lot of people who visit Pray Tell are liturgical musicians, and they're trying to do this. You know, any last words of encouragement for them? Would you like to add?
You know, I mentioned a cappella singing and how crucial that is. The next instrument that I often will add to a cappella singing is drum, some form of a drum, or even a finger cymbal, or something. To me, that's all part. It's the heartbeat, if done well, and then I progress to melody instruments and harmony instruments from there on out. But I think it's important.
As I take the microphone, I'm going to say lose the microphone would be my advice. I would encourage cantors to use the mic only when they need to, only when their solo voice is required. When they are leading the singing of the congregation, back away or shut it off. And once the people get going, I don't know that you need to stand up there at all. Just physically moving away and letting the people know that they're in charge now can signal them that their voice is the leading voice. It's important to try it. We can do better with our congregational song.
And I'll just conclude with the way we began, with Paul's suggestion, don't give up. I think it's not bad to have a 5-year plan to develop
Or a 30.
singing or a 30-year plan. In your case,
I'm still working on it.
Rob has been at the same place for a very long time. Wonderful community in Minnesota. But you know, sometimes we just start thinking week to week, or even we're preparing a season or a year. But really, to have an idea of how this is going to play out over the course of years.
Thank you all, and thank you. This has been Pray Tell Live at the NPM Convention.